You're listening to Mad Radio. Mad Radio. Mad Radio. Make a difference.
Quick, me lads! Hoist the rigging! Aye, Captain! Splice the main brace! Batten down the hatches! Aye, Captain! I'm going below deck to get the show started. And now, the man whose brain lives on the dark side of the moon. It's Mr. Cheesehead himself, Brandon McCarty. Well, thank you, Petey. Hey, welcome in, all you scallywags, you swashbucklers, landlubbers, hornswogglers, and salty dogs to the Peg Leg Podcast, a show where we delve into the lives of fellow pirates and learn a bit more about the unsung heroes among us all. Arr! This week we travel to the School of Arts, Performance, and the Humanities to speak with an individual who earned their BA from UC Berkeley in art practice and art history. Hey, they got their MFA from the San Francisco Art Institute in painting and printmaking. Also, they have their Master's in Humanities with a specialization in art history from CSU Dominguez Hills, and they are currently working on their PhD in leadership theory and instructional technology at the University of the Cumberlands. Like right now, they're working on it. That's pretty awesome. In 2019, he was an organizer of the conference Establishing Indonesia's Place as a Global Center by Updating Ideas About Its Past, and presented at 3 Islamic universities. He has spent 21 years on the faculty side teaching in the areas of art history, humanities, and studio art. He began his participation in Leading from the Middle in 2018 as a member of the MJC team and became a coach for LFM the following year. He has coached for Grossmont College, Fresno City College, and the Hoopa Higher Education Program, and will continue to coach in the 2023 Academy. He's had retrospectives of his artwork at CSU Stanislaus and the Carnegie Art Center in Turlock as part of their 100th anniversary. On the personal side, he has 21 successful years of marriage, and that's all we can really ask for. He has attended hundreds of concerts and even worked security at the Fillmore and Warfield during grad school, and we have to ask about that. I love concerts. Awesome. He has built an art studio onto his house. He has traveled to at least 26 countries, over 5 continents. Wow. We're going to certainly have some stories about travel. That's awesome. Always business and pleasure. But he has been able to get a National Endowment for the Humanities Fellowship, also an Academy of Korean Studies Fellowship as well. He has designed the Heritage Cup, which is contested by the San Jose Earthquakes and Seattle Sounders in Major League Soccer. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podcast the Dean of the School of Arts, Performance, and Humanities, Rob Stevenson.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me, Brandon.
You've got quite a few accomplishments there.
It's been a fun career.
It sounds like it. So, right off the bat, how did you find your way to MJC?
So, I kind of found my way back. I should say that I spent most of my childhood in Escalon.
Okay.
Though I was born in the Bay Area. And when I went to college, took off to the Bay Area, didn't think I was coming back, went to those places that you mentioned, had a great time. Was getting out of grad school, and I went to a job fair, and I was looking only for community college jobs. And I wasn't going over to the table with Modesto. Now, a lot of my friends and my sister are alumni, but I wasn't sure I wanted to go back. And Jim Johnson and Al Smith kind of caught my attention and said, hey, we'd like to talk with you. And I had two things I was concerned about. And the first was, would I be supported in the arts? You couldn't get a better person than Jim Johnson to talk you off that cliff,
absolutely.
Right? And then I was a little worried. I grew up in Escalon, so I was the only Asian kid. Well, my sister was there. We were the only Asian family. And so I wasn't sure that I wanted to return to that. And here's Al Smith, and we get into this incredible discussion. And I turned in my app the next day.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. And then, so I asked Jim Johnson about it years ago. Do you remember, picking me out at this job fair? And he's no.
Oh.
But I remember.
Maybe I would have told a little white lie there. Oh yeah, I remember you. Yeah, absolutely. So that's basically how you got here then.
That is, yeah.
So,
and it turned out to be the perfect gig. I showed up and realized I'm not going anywhere. This place is amazing.
Nice. So you grew up not in Escalon, right? Or you did? That's where you spent most of your youth?
Yeah. K through 12.
Okay.
Yeah. So, grew up in Escalon, and, my family had lived in Stockton before that and Fremont before that, and I've always kind of gone back and forth between the Bay Area and the Central Valley in terms of location and identity. My mother is San Francisco Chinatown Chinese, and so on the weekends we would go and be with family often, and then I would come back to the Central Valley, and so I kind of had this sort of two-place existence, and I really identify heavily with both.
What are some of your hobbies outside of work?
Well, I don't know if I would actually call these hobbies because they are so incredibly important. I'm a bass player and a singer, so that's a fantastic thing, and that is another humanistic pursuit, right? So
right.
While the vocation was visual arts, I've got to say, it's always good to have another art that is the one that you do only for enjoyment and never intend to make any money in. And so you just get to have fun. And so, I see a lot of concerts. So pursuit of music in that way is really exciting for me as well. And I'm a big soccer fan. So my wife and I just celebrated our 20th anniversary of being season ticket holders to the San Jose Earthquakes.
Dang. Now, I have to ask about this because I played the bass for a very short amount of time. So what kind of bass do you prefer playing?
I've got a Fender American Deluxe jazz bass that I really like, and a Fender American Deluxe. It's a Stu Ham. It's a combination between jazz and P pickups.
Ooh.
That really is fun. Eden amps. Always Eden amps.
Eden amps.
Yeah.
I was a Galen Kruger guy myself.
Oh, that's a good sound. It's a crunchier sound than
right.
I usually play with, but Galen Kruger has a great sound.
Nice. So what kind of music are you playing then?
Well, right now, not enough. I haven't played with humans almost at all since the pandemic. But, I just got a book of, I'm going back to basics. I got a book of Cream tunes. And so I want to do those Jack Bruce pieces, go back to the stuff I learned on, sort of a blues, classic rock kind of feel. Try and sing and play those and really get back into the feel of it.
I think that was my first lesson on the bass was playing Smoke on the Water.
Smoke on the Water. Ooh,
oh wait, no, that's not Cream. I meant Sunshine of Your Love. That's what I meant.
Oh, that's I can also play that one. I don't know if anybody needs two bassists, but yeah, that's a really fun one to play.
Yes, yeah, it was. And how are your fingers? Have you been practicing recently? Do you have a lot of calluses on your fingers, or do you play with a pick?
So I don't pick, but not only am I working back on those calluses, but I also have some U basses, some Kala U basses, and it's a half-scale bass on a ukulele body. So it's got a great sound. You have to amplify it. And so when I get a little sore on the left hand, it's really easy to move over to what a friend of mine described as udon-like strings that go up and down.
Really?
Really nice sound, though.
And are they flat? Are they round still, or are they flat?
So you can get round ones, but the flat ones are the better sound on this, and the fretless ones are by far the best sound. If you close your eyes, it really kind of sounds like a stand-up.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just experienced bass talk. This is the secondary show that we're gonna. This is the we'll break off of this and we'll do a whole podcast on bass
base equipment.
I'm looking forward to it.
Oh my gosh! So you've been following the earthquakes you said for about 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you even you've always followed soccer, or?
So, I was kind of on and off with soccer earlier on, and I got kind of reignited when we were in South Korea. It's important to point that out.
Right, yes.
As the World Cup was starting back in 2002. And I found myself up every night, watching these things live. At that point, it was a VHS world, right? So you could record some, but it was a limited possibility. And, I knew that we had a team in San Jose, which is a place I really identify with. My grandfather was in Sunnyvale. And so we went out to see him, and of course, Jeff Agus, Landon Donovan, a whole bunch of U.S. national team stars are on that team, that championship team. So we showed up in 2002 and just never stopped coming. Got our first season tickets in 2003 and won the championship down in L.A., the place they least wanted to see us win the championship.
Kind of tell us how you got involved with creating this trophy.
So, this is a story that involves me running my mouth off a little bit. So, unfortunately, that team got moved in 2006, and I was involved with a group called Soccer Silicon Valley, and we lobbied the league and were able to, like the Cleveland Browns did, keep the legacy in the Bay Area.
Okay.
So there'd been a team with this earlier league, the North American Soccer League, NASL. And so San Jose had taken that name, San Jose Earthquakes. It had been in both leagues, so there wasn't a reason that could go to Houston. And so we were successful then in getting our team to come back. I think it was 2008 we got them back, 2007, 8, somewhere around there. And the next expansion team was the Seattle Sounders. And I was with a bunch of those Soccer Silicon Valley guys, kind of running my mouth off at a tailgate. And I was talking about how it'd be great to have this cup between the only two teams that had this legacy name. And, maybe I drank a little too much that night, or a little more than a little too much. And
Yeah.
woke up the next morning to a call from the president of Soccer Silicon Valley saying, hey, I've got $5,000 for you. When are you going to make us this cup? And then I had to figure out how to direct a cup making sort of endeavor. I am not a sculptor. So
Okay.
I could lead people through the process of design. I could do all the initial drawings, but then Bennett Awards in Sacramento is the group where I went to them and we hired a sculptor and made it lost wax cast. It's a really interesting cup. It's like half a soccer ball on the top, full scale, and the hexagons and the pentagons are the pentagons are like a patina darker shape or a darker tone, and then they have these raised stars like the old NASL ball. And so I got to present that at the 35th anniversary of the original Earthquakes, and they went kind of nuts for it. And so it's still contested between the two teams. I've handed it off on the field a few times. It's just kind of nice. I mean, sports teams never say, what we need is an artist. So I got the chance to jump in there the one time.
Right. And so if we go to an Earthquakes game, can we see this thing? Do they have it anywhere?
So funny, crazy story.
Yes.
I handed that cup off to the coach of the Seattle Sounders as we were kind of ending a season, and the next season was a COVID season. They have not found the cup since then. So we don't know where that is.
Really?
I'm really hoping it's in a Seattle locker room.
Wow. You may have to go searching for this thing.
It does sound fun. We have partners in Seattle. They did not find it to be fun to go through the effort.
Right.
But I hold out hope that it's in somebody's office with a potted plant in it. And we'll walk in there one day and boom, there's the cup.
I think that sounds like a road trip, really. And there's a lot of good beer between here and there. So
there is indeed.
If you need somebody to go with you, just let me know. I'm down for that.
I'm thinking party bus.
Oh, perfect. So what is something that you pride yourself in?
So I'm a pretty detail-oriented person. And so I'll go back to work stuff for this. And I think that's probably seeing systems and figuring out how to get things to work is probably where I'm most in my element, and not necessarily being on a stage or, having to lead a room. But I do think that I'm pretty good at taking that material and getting people involved with it and getting a group of people to come to consensus to work together. So that's something I take a little pride in, when I can get a sort of critical mass going, especially if they don't know that I was really, that was my goal, then I think I had a really good day.
Interesting. Okay. All right. What motivates you?
Boy, I'll tell you. So big changes. I went from the art building to now living above the theater. And so it's always about the students in the community.
Right.
But I get to do a whole different thing now. So, when I was teaching, I'd be really focused on my individual students. And, some of those you get to know for years and years and years. I just went to see a former student. I hadn't seen her in like 7 years. And I went to go see her MFA the sort of mid show that you have. And it was just a wonderful experience. Really, really great, right? So that's where my mind was at that point. And then when I took this role, I wasn't quite sure. I knew I was that the role is more of a support role. And I really got to start working with our production team, our theater, and our dance crews. And it's an amazing thing to show up, and your role is to help put the talent out there that brings the community onto MJC's campus and affects all of those students and gives them opportunities that they wouldn't have if MJC didn't have a vibrant like arts and performing arts area. So that gets me up almost every morning.
Well, you were the right person for the task.
And very rarely do you go to an interview and think, I think this job might be made for me. But it was a surreal experience.
Absolutely. What do you like about the MJC community as a whole?
Well, boy, I'll start there with the people. I mean, MJC is a wonderful place to find collaborators, whether it's conspirators or people to go out and build big things with. What I love about doing that at MJC is not just that people tend to get really excited, but they're excited about interacting with the community and the students in a way that previous institutions that I've been at are not as focused on. It's, not a place that, is all about what you're doing.
Right.
But it is about what you're bringing and how you can bring people in. So you never have to answer the question, why are you involving students in this particular project? You're involving students because we are Modesto Junior College. And so it's really fun to work with people who have that mindset and who want to do things together. I think it's just a fun place to work.
Excellent answer. Excellent. Let's change gears a little bit. And if you would tell us maybe one or two, or it could be a lot, some of your favorite places that you like to eat.
Okay, so in Modesto.
Sure, we can start there. Yeah.
I'll go with Curtis Martin's house and my house are really fun places to eat. But in terms of restaurants, I really miss Modesto Sukiyaki. I worked there as a 16-year-old, and Mr. and Mrs. Yokoshika ran a fantastic business, Yokohama-style Japanese food. We still have Sushi Garden under the original ownership, and I think they're really fantastic. Love them. I really do also like, I've been getting into Saigon 1, which is over near West Campus.
Okay.
It's become a regular feature of my life. I didn't know it was going to happen. Dynasty is, for me, the best Cantonese-style place in town. Really fantastic. Going to put that out there for folks. And El Rosal number 2. In particular, number 2 is just wonderful comfort food for me.
Where is that one located?
So that's Floyd and Coffee.
Number 2.
Yep. And Camp 4.
Camp,
also fantastic,
yeah,
right?
You can't go wrong with that.
This is the thing that Modesto's needed for years. Just a lovely place.
Yes. Now, Sukiyaki, did they reopen?
So they're under a different ownership.
Okay.
And I just feel like those recipes from before are what I want, and I'm never going to be able to give those new people a fair shake. So it's not fair for me to go there. I just, I have these memories in that building.
Right.
And I can almost still taste those flavors.
You're making me hungry already. If you will, tell us a funny story or experience. It could be either professionally or personally.
All right, so I'll take this back to UC Berkeley,
Okay.
and just a really a weird one, because this one kind of connects with some folks here. So I've been learning over the years that to be a better collaborator and to be a little, I didn't realize, I should say, that sometimes I took myself very seriously and would make waves that I didn't understand. So when I was an art history student, I got to work with the great Anne Wagner, and she's this fantastic theorist, great art historian. She's the one who really changed the way that people think about Andy Warhol and talked about him as a history painter instead of a pop art guy. And it was mind-blowing to me. It was really fantastic. But I was having some identity issues at that time as a studio artist and an art history major. And so I'd go to my discussion section, and it was kind of like a speak for your kind thing. I wasn't always getting along with the other students in her, that were in her orbit. So I did this painting. Anne Wagner had this beautiful curly hair, short, about chin level, and she lectured from a lectern. And so I extended her shadow beyond to be like this big atomic bomb explosion, and I put Andy Warhol's atomic bomb pictures right next to her and gigantic on the screen. And I made all of the people in the front rows like the same person. So it was the same girl talking to herself, and they're all gesturing, right?
Yeah.
So her graduate student instructor went to one of my shows and said, "Hey, you did a painting of Anne. We got to tell her." And I said, "No. You have to promise me you will never tell Anne about this painting." She promised, but she didn't keep it. So went to class the next time, and she says, "Hey," Anne Wagner says, "It's a big room, 80 people. Hey, I hear Rob Stevenson has a painting with me in it. Can you bring it to my next office hour?"
Oh, no.
So I do.
Yes.
And Anne Wagner is extremely polite for about 5 minutes, but she can read a painting. She knows exactly. She takes it personally. I didn't mean it that way. And I realized at the end of this 5 minutes, I'm never going to get to work on that honors thesis that I want to do with the great Anne Wagner. And so I thought, well, it's a mess up. I'll learn from this, right? Until I heard our academic senate president, Aisha Saleh, who went to that school in that program about 7 or 8 years later, tell this story at an event we were at, not knowing who it was. And I realized, oh man, you can really leave some ripples and not know what you're doing. So, just one of those things. You run in this case, it was run your paintbrush off and accidentally offend people.
Oh, no. So that story will probably never die. It's always going to be regurgitated somewhere at some point by somebody.
I didn't know anybody else knew it.
Oh, my gosh. That's hilarious. Well, so who then, maybe it's not this Martin person, but who has been your biggest influence, either personally or professionally or both?
So at Berkeley, Randy Husong and the late Wendy Sussman were just phenomenally understanding to, again, a kid who really thought he knew where he was going and did not. So those people have really affected me. Of course, my family, my mom in particular, my wife have really changed the way I think about a lot of things and helped me to become who I am today. In terms of leadership and being at the college, I spent a lot of time working with Curtis Martin and Jennifer Zellett. Aisha came into that picture, Chad Redwing, a whole lot of people, now Brian Sanders, of course, as well, is back. A whole lot of people. I'm sorry for all the people I'm leaving out here. There's been a ton of people. I've gotten to work with them sort of hand in hand. And then at LFM, Iruri Valenzuela is somebody who asked me to coach. And a lot of times these folks would tell me that I needed to do something, and I would say no. And then they would try and convince me. And then it might come down to, well, I'm going to have to give it to this other person, and I'd realize I'd have to do it, or they'd actually get me to do it. And that style really helped me to come out of my shell as somebody who preferred to do things behind the scenes. I did a lot of equivalency and hiring prioritization. I always, we're sitting here a podcast situation, right? I like to be in the back room fiddling with knobs and editing.
Ah.
That was way more than my thing than being on a microphone.
Interesting. Well, so let's get into the travel portion of where you've been and what you've done. Because we'll talk about travel first because obviously it's going to tie right into this next question, but just kind of rattle off for us all of the countries that you have visited.
Oh my goodness, this is gonna be a little hard. I didn't study for this test, so
That's okay.
all right. So we'll start in the Pacific. Besides the three North American countries that we're all gonna claim, right? Canada, and I don't count the U.S. in that number, and Mexico. Spent some time in Australia, Indonesia, China, Korea, South Korea, that is, Japan, India, Cambodia. In the Middle East and Africa, it's just Egypt and Jordan. In Europe, it's going to be, let's see, England, Wales, Scotland, France, Portugal, Spain, Italy, Vatican City, Austria, Germany, Czech Republic, Hungary, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and I apologize to anybody I left out.
So the reason that I wanted you to do all of that is because if you had a free plane ticket to anywhere in the world and you could leave tomorrow, where would you go and why?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Would it be safe to go? Oh, by the way, I have to add Greece because I forgot about Greece.
Okay.
So would it be safe to go there, or is this like a dream thing where you can go somewhere that wouldn't normally be possible, or is this you just get a ticket and you go?
There's peace wherever you go, so everything is safe. Yeah, kind of a dream trip, I guess.
Yeah. So I would probably go to Iran, which I'm not sure I'll ever go to, but the Safavid dynasty, amazing things. I'd love to go to Isfahan, and I would love to see Persepolis. And so put on the spot and saying I get one ticket and it's going to be safe, that's where I'm going.
All right. Excellent. Now, here's an interesting question. And again, we may have to preface this with a lot of the, you've been to numerous concerts. You've seen a lot of amazing artists. I guess before we get into that question about the albums, what are some of the best shows, concerts that you've been to?
Oh, I'm so glad you're not asking me to pick like the one, because that's impossible.
Right. No, it is.
So I got to see Bowie at the Warfield as a patron, not as somebody working there, and made eye contact. I was right behind the railing just before you go into the orchestra pit. And it's the first time I'd looked into the eyes of a god. It was just this incredible set. He just started doing his hits again. I think it was like 98 or 9. And it was just mind-blowing. I did get to see bands like Nirvana and Alice in Chains a lot of folks you can't do anymore.
Right.
They were always incredible. Jane's Addiction was a big one for me back in the day. 3-hour sets that just go and go and go. Really, really fun. Paul McCartney, the first time I saw him, just, bring you to tears, right? Like all that music you've been listening to your whole life. I was there in like the first couple of days in the back of the USA tour. I think I just started this job. And, that show was just phenomenal. I did get to see Roger Waters when he started playing again. And he's been playing a lot since, but that time he came back was just insanely good. Really great. Saw Radiohead a bunch of times. It's hard to pick.
That's quite a few.
There's been a lot of good shows.
Well, so if you only had 3 albums that you could listen to for the rest of your life, what 3 would they be and why?
Well, I like the desert island question, but it's a scary one, right? Because I always think of this like, is this like torture? do you have to listen to this for the rest of your
Oh,
life?
well, yes. Yeah, so it has to
Right.
be, somebody that you can tolerate for for the end of time, I guess.
So Colbert has, asked this question in a different form. He asked, like one song for the rest of your life. And I've been thinking, if I don't pick John Cage's 4 minutes and 11 seconds, the piece that's all about silence, if I don't pick that just to get out of the game with cheating, I
That
think,
is cheating.
right? So Miles Davis and Coltrane's Kind of Blue, the full album,
Okay.
that's one I listen to all the time anyway, and that can just be the soundtrack of my life. I think Pink Floyd Animals. I love concept albums. I think that would just be I can listen to that endlessly. And I'll go with Radiohead Kid A. Just things that they're super powerful when they're powerful and then move into sort of soundscapes or landscapes. If I get 3 albums for the rest of my life, I need all the feelings in those albums from top to bottom, so I'll go with those 3.
Wow. That's certainly a range, and I approve. That's a great list. That's awesome. So, do you have any parting words of encouragement for us?
Yes, I'm going to start with it's been dark, right? And there's probably, this has been a really, really difficult time. I think, I didn't have as hard a time during COVID as some people did because, if you're an introvert, you can just stay home for forever. But I did end up missing people, and it's been really hard on the world, and you can see where it's left the world, the country as well, right? So I always want to think it's lightest just before the dawn, but I think about the phrase that has been attributed to Chairman Mao, who said, "It's always darkest just before it's pitch black." I'm gonna not go with that. I'm gonna say,
Okay.
if you do what you love and there's meaning in what you do, then you're doing something worth doing, and you're living well. And I think, to bring this back to a Pirates thing, I never worry that I'm not doing the right thing when I show up to work, right? Like, I get to show up and maybe I'm helping people change lives. Maybe I get to do some of that myself. So if you find meaning now, you spend time also with your family, then it cannot be a waste. It has to be good.
Words to live by right there. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know we've kind of, it's like 2 ships at night. We've just kind of passed each other several times, but I got you here. Yes. So I appreciate you taking the time and giving us a window into your life.
Hey, thanks for all the rescheduling. I really appreciate it, and it's been really fun.
Excellent.
Well, the winds are picking up and the barnacles are collecting on the bow. Time for us to set sail, me hearties. This episode was brought to you by
John Wick's Candle Company. See what I did there?
Produced by
Myself.
edited by that salty sea chicken over there, Patchy the Parrot, and music by
The Imaginarium Aquarium Band.
Hey, guess what? We are getting closer and closer to 4-day
Work weeks. Oh, yeah. So hang in there.
And as always, remember to keep your booty close and your sword sharp, lest you find yourself swabbing the deck
On the bottom of Davy Jones's locker. Until we meet again.